Dear colleagues, President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky, we will begin with a short statement, and then you will have the opportunity to ask questions.
Good day, esteemed journalists and honored guests. In the coming days, Ukraine will markedly intensify its diplomatic efforts, not only throughout the European continent, but also well beyond its borders, engaging partners across various regions of the world. There will be a meeting with the chair of the G20, President of the Republic of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa. A meeting will take place with the President of Poland, Andrzej Duda, within the framework of the Three Seas Initiative Summit in Poland. There will also be a meeting with the President of the Czech Republic, Petr Pavel. We will take part in the farewell ceremony for Pope Francis. In addition, there will be an important separate meeting with the Prime Minister of Spain, Pedro Sanchez. Tomorrow, our team will participate in a meeting in London in the Europe format, specifically, France, the United Kingdom, Germany, Ukraine, plus the United States of America.
What is the outlook for an unconditional ceasefire, and how do you define the term? The so-called Easter truce showed that Moscow has no intention of halting its attacks. What arguments and levers does Ukraine have to compel the enemy to keep its word? And what kind of support do we expect from our partners in this process? Thank you.
So far, there has been no unconditional ceasefire. The proposal for such a move came from the United States, supported by our European colleagues and, of course, by Ukraine. Ukraine is ready for an unconditional ceasefire. The meaning is clear from the phrase itself, unconditional, that is, with no preconditions whatsoever. A ceasefire means no attacks on our country, none. And, accordingly, there would be no retaliatory strikes. Ukraine is prepared to honor such an unconditional ceasefire. If, however, the ceasefire is only partial, as we have already discussed, then we are prepared to act accordingly. For example, if there are no strikes on our energy infrastructure, we do not strike theirs. If long-range weapons are not used by Russia, we will also refrain from using long-range weapons. If we are truly talking about an unconditional ceasefire, it means silence at sea, in the sky, and on the ground, on the front lines. Ukraine is ready to take these steps. We have said this many times. Now, as for those on whom this depends, first and foremost, it depends on Putin's willingness. During the Easter period, Putin made it clear that when the Russian side decides to scale back its strikes, they are fully capable of doing so. They did scale back, but it was still far from a true unconditional ceasefire. However, we saw clearly who is the source of this war. When they wanted to reduce attacks, they did. Yet fighting continued in many areas, with several assaults. Fewer than usual, but they happened. FPV drones were used. They refrained from using long-range weapons on Easter Day. FPV drones were used. It happened on Easter. However, both in the days leading up to Easter and immediately after it, they continued to employ every available means and resource at their disposal. Tonight's drone attacks, missile strikes, and today's use of glide bombs against civilian infrastructure, all of it, and their excuses that civilian targets in Ukraine were actually military objectives. This all reveals something critical, that they have officially admitted that they were striking, and have struck, and killed civilians. In Kryvyi Rih, in Sumy region, in Odessa, they have openly acknowledged killing civilians. This has happened more than once. So how can an agreement be reached? Our American partners are holding talks, not only with Ukraine and Europe, but also with the Russian side. What is urgently needed now is a constructive and unambiguous response from Russia to the conditions that we, along with our international partners, have consistently supported, the conditions required for an immediate and unconditional ceasefire.
Mr. President, could you confirm whether the United States has submitted new proposals to Ukraine regarding an end to the war? Can you share any details, as widely reported in the media? There is talk about Crimea, NATO renunciation, as we've read, and a neutral zone around the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. Specifically on Crimea, is it true that the US may recognize it as Russian territory, or are they asking Ukraine to do so? And, ultimately, would we agree to such terms if they led to a guaranteed end to the war?
I believe the fundamental issue with this concept lies in the fact that we are attempting to skip several crucial steps. We haven't even secured a positive outcome regarding a ceasefire, and yet we are already trying to dive into the middle of the story without having properly read, or even opened, the very first page. That's not how understanding works. If we genuinely want to move toward ending the war, Ukraine once again confirms its desire for a swift and just peace. But that must begin with an unconditional ceasefire as the first step. Otherwise, we run the risk of getting drawn into a prolonged and fruitless debate with the Russians, one that does nothing to stop the ongoing violence, while simultaneously being pressured into accepting new, unfavorable conditions. There is a real danger that we could find ourselves repeating history with yet another version of the Minsk agreements, Minsk 3, 4, or even 5, a recycled Normandy format, but this time with an even higher human cost. If we are determined to avoid that outcome, we must approach this war in a more structured way, almost like a pie, at breaking down the complex problem into smaller, more manageable pieces, each of which can be addressed more effectively. That's the only way we can hope to resolve anything. Because the moment we start talking about Crimea or other sovereign Ukrainian territories, we enter into the very game Russia wants us to play, one of delays. You cannot agree on everything quickly. The fact that we've been at war since 2012 is, in itself, an answer to the question, can you make real agreements with Russia? That's rhetorical. Can you reach a deal with them quickly? No. Without pressure? Absolutely not. Pressure is needed, from the entire world, but above all, from America. I believe the proposal from President Trump to pursue an unconditional ceasefire is the right one. We supported President Trump in that regard. But this idea of let's negotiate everything at once, in a single day, that's not going to work. That path means more fighting, more death, and a long, drawn-out dialogue. And what for? Simply to pressure us? To wear down America and push them out of the process? That is, many different reasons. That's Putin's game. Not President Trump's. And certainly not Europe's. Ukraine does not play games. For us, this will represent something far more serious, with far-reaching consequences that extend beyond the immediate conflict and touch on deeper, more complex issues that affect our future on many different levels. So, in my opinion, jumping straight to such discussions is a mistake. As for the various proposals, they are ideas, signals, visions. These are not official offers made to Ukraine. That distinction is critical. If we receive an official proposal, we will respond immediately as such. And you will know about it. Have we heard signals? Yes. They are in the media. And they'll likely keep coming. But I don't know where exactly they're coming from. Maybe from the Russians. Perhaps someone in the United States, after having a conversation with Putin, shared their own interpretation of the situation. It's also possible that this reflects the vision or stance of the US administration itself. It could be any of those. Or maybe this is the vision of the United States of America, right? It could be interpreted in different ways. Let's put it this way, I wouldn't focus on whose vision it is. Today, we understand, from the media and other sources, that these signals are coming from the United States. As for our team, tomorrow it has a mandate, the mandate it has. This is a discussion about an unconditional ceasefire or a partial ceasefire. We are ready for this stage. We are also prepared to make it abundantly clear that once a ceasefire is in place, we are ready to engage in discussions in any format. This is to ensure that there is no deadlock, and to avoid any perception that Ukraine is uncertain or indecisive, whether we can or cannot engage, or whether we are willing or unwilling to sit down at the table, in any format. Because at that point, we will believe we have achieved at least some result. That Russia is truly ready, not just unwilling, which we already know, but ready to take real steps toward results. That we are dealing with serious people taking serious steps, not another round of immaturity. That's what we're talking about. so I can't take these signals seriously yet. As for Crimea, it's possible that we may not even need to engage in any discussion about it at this point, as the situation is already clear and established in its own right. Based on what I've seen, and I believe we've seen roughly the same things, it's clear that Ukraine does not legally recognize the occupation of Crimea. There's nothing to talk about. This is outside the bounds of our constitution. This is our territory, the territory of the Ukrainian people. We can't just say, why not give it up? That's not going to happen. I believe we've already made this clear regarding any temporarily occupied territory, and I've said it before as president. And the Constitution, by its very existence, reaffirms this. That's it. Was there another point you were interested in?
There was also the question of Ukraine's refusal to join NATO and the creation of a neutral zone around the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. Well, actually, we know what the situation is.
Let's talk about NATO. You know our position on NATO. The US hasn't supported it, essentially. But legally, no one has rejected it. But in practice, no one, except for the United States, has supported Ukraine's NATO membership in the near future. Second story. That's the first point. The second point, let's imagine all NATO countries support us. For example, no country outside of NATO has the authority to veto Ukraine's membership in NATO, as the decision is solely in the hands of the member states of the alliance. Russia is outside NATO. Russia, aside from being an aggressor criminal, is a participant in this war, and it cannot talk about security guarantees for Ukraine because it violated them. Is there a dialogue between the US and Russia regarding Ukraine's NATO membership? I'm sure there is. And if they want to make it clear that Ukraine should refuse NATO, for example, if all NATO countries support us but Russia demands that we refuse NATO, then I have a very direct question. We don't have that, and not everyone supports us. But even if we imagine this, my question is, what would we be giving up by refusing NATO? Those are security guarantees. What will happen in Ukraine? I have a very simple question, we refuse, and this is requested by the United States, for example. Then I ask the United States, if we want to be constructive, what do we get in return? What security guarantees are on the table? We both know the infrastructure we are working on, but... And then the US might say, here are your security guarantees. Is this a dialogue? Yes, it is. But what is Russia offering us in exchange? If we give up NATO, what is Russia giving up? Logically, it makes sense. They have previously stated that they entered Ukraine in order to protect the security of their own state, claiming that NATO was increasingly encroaching and posing a direct threat to their borders. So, if NATO is no longer advancing towards our borders, what exactly will Russia offer us in return, and what justification will they provide for their actions? What do they offer? If you refuse, it's a threat. We are not afraid of Russian threats. That's regarding NATO. As for the Zaporizhzhia plant, Zaporizhzhia station? I think I've mentioned this before. It's not operating on its own today, and without Ukraine, it won't operate. And the United States, with all due respect, won't be enough. We need our technical staff. America clearly understands, both from a technical and political standpoint, that if it were to take on a management role at this plant, it would need to do so in collaboration with our own technical staff, as their expertise would be essential for the successful operation. The issue arises immediately. We raise the question right away. I've spoken about this. Access to water, infrastructure, and the lives of those people, they are citizens of Ukraine. Their safety, what happens with Anahoda? What's going to happen? Where will they live? What about their children? Will their children be brought home or not? Many questions. What can be signed, and what can't be signed? What can we agree to, And what can't we agree to? If this plant is under Russian control today, but tomorrow it might be under American control, then what happens with everything else? What about the people? If Americans join us and Russians leave, and we rebuild it together with the US, generating revenue from electricity and so on, I think that's reasonable. But I've never heard such an official proposal. There are rumors, people, technical staff at different levels, media. There are many messages and rumors. But I've never heard an official proposal. Officially. So, Ukraine is not opposed to forming a partnership with the United States in any direction, whether it's for restoring infrastructure or revitalizing any enterprise, as long as it contributes to the country's overall recovery and growth. Why not? We have Motor Sich, and today a missile hit it. If tomorrow I get a Patriot missile system in Zaporizhia with American personnel who will repair Motor Sich, then let them come in and we'll work together at Motor Sich. That's clear. The Patriot costs $1.5 billion. Put in the Patriot, you've invested $1.5 billion, you're a partner in Motor Sich. The same goes for the plant. We are not afraid to partner with the United States. But partnership is partnership. That's all.
Recently, Putin, through Peskov, stated that he is ready to speak with Ukraine for the first time.
With Ukraine? With the regime? With me? With whom?
With Ukraine, not with the US.
Medvedchuk might also be associated with Ukraine. He talks to Ukraine in the evenings. He says he's speaking with Ukraine.
I wanted to ask, because they didn't specify who exactly. Have there been any attempts by the Russians recently to reach out to you? Also, if I may, it seems that right now a lot is being said about us without us, and you've tried to prevent that. Do our American partners often communicate with you officially about their actions and their negotiations with the Russians? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Platforms like London and Paris, we communicate in that format. Defense ministers are maintaining communication in one format or another, and the head of the presidential office also has established contacts with certain officials and representatives within the White House administration. In addition, Senator Mr. Rubio previously held a meeting with our minister, and more recently, they participated in a joint session or discussion together while in Paris, continuing their diplomatic engagement. On the military level, frankly, I believe there are even more contacts, because we have relations, we have contacts, absolutely normal contacts. As for what America is discussing with Russia, we know something. We are not accusing anyone, but we know something. We hope we know a lot of what we should know. I'm talking specifically about the issue of Ukraine. We really hope for that. As for the Russians, I've said this before. I believe they are afraid of direct negotiations. That's what I think. The signals they are sending. I don't know for what reason. Maybe they're truly afraid that the Americans will leave the negotiations format, or maybe they're doing this so the Americans will leave. I don't know. I have my own conclusions, and I'll keep them to myself. As for any negotiations, where's the result? If the Russians, and I want to emphasize once again that it entirely depends on them, choose to act, we already observed certain movements and steps they made during the Easter period, which may be indicative of their intentions. If the Russians are genuinely prepared to commit to a complete and comprehensive ceasefire, one that includes a clear understanding of its duration, then we are fully open and willing to engage in any format of negotiations with them to seek a peaceful resolution. Any format.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Mr. President, one clarification. Through official or unofficial channels, were the Americans ever warning us before or in Paris that they were preparing a plan for leaving the peace negotiations? This is a clarification. And about what Mr. Rubio said, and in general, President Trump has also spoken about it. And, actually, the main question, is the Prime Minister already in Washington, or is he about to arrive? Could you please clarify? Do you expect that there's a possibility that a mineral agreement will be signed this week? Perhaps it will be signed in the presence of both you and President Trump in the Vatican? Thank you.
So many plans. As for the agreement, our teams have shown progress. There were constructive, long talks, day and night, with what our teams have. The Vice Prime Minister signed an agreement with the Secretary, signed a memorandum. And this shows that we are ready when it's a victory for both countries. I believe the memorandum is positive for both countries. That's the first step. The second step is the agreement, which must be ratified in Parliament. Lawyers are working on that. I have nothing more to say. Lawyers from both American companies are working, though on different sides. From the very beginning, I made it clear that we would bring in a strong and reputable American company, one that has the backing and support of the White House, to ensure full transparency and so that we wouldn't be accused or blamed for anything later on. That's how we do it. Now the lawyers are working under the supervision of our team, and their lawyers are under the supervision of their team. That's clear. They are still working. I don't have any other information about further steps or the finalization. Regarding the agreement, I truly have all the information I can share. As for all other information on the agreement, what is planned, I've received that from the media. Just like you.
What about the Vatican, Trump?
As for Washington, did you ask? The Prime Minister, Finance Ministers. As far as I know, it's a regularly scheduled annual meeting that takes place at the level of finance ministers from partner countries, where they gather to discuss financial cooperation, strategies, and shared economic priorities. They will all be there, and I understand that Mr. Besson, the U.S. Secretary of Treasury, will represent the United States. It will be a large circle of finance ministers from various countries. This is not just about Ukraine and America. It's about Ukraine and America, and many of our European partners. It's their meeting. They will discuss financial support for Ukraine. He has the mandate, the Prime Minister, and I discussed this. This is support coming from our international partners, the EBRD, the World Bank, and the International Monetary Fund. It's something we can rely on moving forward. As for the frozen Russian assets, we plan to use an appropriate portion of those funds for reconstruction efforts next year. That is the main focus of this meeting. Separately, on the sidelines of the event, there may also be a meeting between our Prime Minister and U.S. Treasury Secretary Mr. Besson. Yes, we support such a meeting, and let them meet. As for their financial agenda, to be honest, I don't know much more. In the Vatican?
Yes, in the Vatican. Will you be there? Did you want to meet, or has this already been planned and agreed upon?
Yes, we wanted to. We are always ready to meet with our American partners. Always.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My question is about the Patriot systems. You recently mentioned that Ukraine is ready to purchase 10 such systems. And during the last briefing, you said you mentioned this to President Trump, to which he responded that America would work on it. So, has America worked on this, or have our colleagues said anything to you or made any proposals? And the second question, could you confirm or deny the fact that the current American assistance we are receiving is what was left from what President Biden provided, and that the new administration does not agree to this?
The assistance we are receiving now is the support that Congress approved a year ago. This is correct. As for new assistance, we have not yet had the opportunity to finalize an agreement or engage in detailed discussions with the United States regarding the specifics of the support. Regarding Patriot systems, yes, this could be part of new assistance, a new package, or it could be only in the new package. It depends on our agreements. The United States has not yet responded regarding the Patriot systems we are ready to purchase.
Thank you. I have a question for you regarding external communication. Actually, after your statement that China is supplying weapons to Russia, Beijing did not confirm this statement, and denied it.
Who?
Beijing, China. Could you please tell me if representatives from Beijing have communicated with you regarding this matter? And are you ready to publish documents that would confirm the supply of weapons from them to Russia?
First and foremost, I requested that the Foreign Intelligence Service pass the relevant information onto the Chinese authorities in order to ensure proper communication. They are expected to carry out this task today, providing a brief overview of the information based on the data they have, and sharing it through the appropriate Chinese personnel. In addition, the Foreign Minister is relaying this important information to the embassy in Beijing, ensuring it is transmitted through the proper diplomatic channels. We are also trying to send this information directly to Beijing through other channels. Furthermore, I instructed the Security Service of Ukraine to provide a more thorough and detailed report to the Chinese authorities regarding the presence and activities of Chinese citizens currently working at a drone manufacturing plant in Russia. This additional information is crucial to help clarify the full scope of their involvement in the facility and shed light on any potential implications. Based on the information we have gathered, we believe that Russia has illicitly obtained an agreement with these citizens, and that this has been done without the knowledge or consent of the Chinese leadership. Russia has illicitly taken these technologies, as the information in question contains Chinese technologies that are directly linked to the development and production of these drones. I believe that Beijing will be closely interested in observing how their partners are conducting their operations and handling these matters moving forward.
Have they communicated with you personally?
With me personally? No, only at the level of the embassy and our diplomats.
A question for you. Last week, Donald Trump said that the US might withdraw from its role as a mediator in negotiations between Ukraine and Russia if one side makes achieving a peace agreement too difficult. How do you assess the real possibility of the US completely exiting the negotiation process? And could this simultaneously lead to a complete suspension of US assistance? Thank you.
We would very much not want America to withdraw from this assistance, because it's not just about the aid, it's also about intelligence, about ballistic capabilities, about lives. And, in principle, I believe it would represent a significant loss of a strategic partner for Ukraine, which could have long-term implications for our relations and future cooperation. Because we are strategic partners. You know, today I had an interview, and we were speaking with an American journalist. Interestingly, from my perspective, at a time when North Korea is openly acting as an ally of Russia, supplying munitions that are being used against us and our people, and at a time when we observe concerning developments involving Chinese military forces, this is a situation we are closely monitoring, and we can confirm these developments with concrete facts. We are not just throwing accusations around, we are showing facts. At the moment when Iran is openly an enemy of the United States, and all of the others I mentioned have complicated. Worse than complicated. They are really geopolitical enemies. In this context, when Ukraine speaks as a strategic partner of the United States, how can anyone, so to speak, choose not to assist Ukraine or even question the value of that assistance, especially given the circumstances we face? We are allies. The Russians are a historical enemy of the Americans. First and foremost. Therefore, this is a very dangerous moment. I don't think it sends a good signal if America withdraws. We really hope that President Trump will continue to support Ukraine and put pressure on Russia. And we truly believe in that. As for whether one side will be ready to do what? Which side are we talking about? If we are talking about an unconditional ceasefire, we have officially agreed. If this involves other actions or future steps, particularly those that affect Ukraine's sovereignty, how can we possibly agree to such terms or accept them in any way? These are red lines.
Mr. President, regarding United 24, today the Kremlin once again reiterated Putin's message, stating that they are prepared to consider your proposal to halt attacks on civilian infrastructure as a potential step toward de-escalation. But from your perspective, Mr. President, is Moscow truly ready for such negotiations? And if so, what steps need to be taken to make this happen?
The question is the same as with the unconditional ceasefire. Moscow is not ready for what we are ready for. And they are confident that we are not ready to take fast, correct, and strong steps. Throughout the course of this war, it appears to me that their intelligence services, with their vast network of hundreds of thousands of personnel, have gained a clear understanding of our strategies, our actions, and even our psychological profile. When we make a decision, we act. We are not afraid of them. And this is our specific response to their questions. When they make some accusations or comments about talks, I believe they are trying to push America out of the negotiations. What is happening now is an attempt to show their leadership. That's what's happening. We respond by saying that I believe America is the real leader. We want them to participate. We want them to put pressure on Russia. But we are ready to stand by our words. If the Russians are not only willing to agree to a ceasefire tomorrow but are actually ready to implement it, we are fully prepared to sit down for meaningful talks and move forward with concrete steps toward bringing an end to the war. Not just talking.